Hi, everybody. Sean Adams here, host of the To Get Seen Hangouts. Today, we're going to be talking about how to set up your game plan for your small business to help ensure that you have success. I'm going to be doing a lot of information that came out of a free ebook that I have available to everybody. And in order to get that ebook, you can just go to togetSeen.com/game-plan. And so I'm just going to go ahead and show that page to everybody. It's this page here. It's To Get Seen at game-plan, and you can go ahead and download the ebook there. It's also available underneath this video on any page that you might be watching this video. But having said that, welcome. We're glad to have you here. We're going to have some fun today, and I would like to say hello to our very consistent guest, Mr. Robert McPhee. Robert, why don't you say hello to everybody, introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Hey, Sean. Robert McPhee, San Diego, California. I am speaker, author, coach, focusing currently on working with colleges and high schools to help students make really empowered choices. And I'm the author of a book called Manifesting for Non-Gurus, and really excited also to be Sean's partner on a little project we're doing called Daily Upbeats, where we help people start their day with a little dose of positive, inspiring, energizing music every day through an email that we send out. So lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I'm loving Upbeats, and we're going to be offering a couple. We're going to be rolling up some new information about Upbeats soon, which is very exciting. I love doing it. I love doing the fact that we're able to help everybody have a positive start to their day. So to me, that's a fabulous thing. So it's good to have you here, Robert, as always. Glad to have you, and always looking forward to your thoughts and your insights. And like I said, today it's just kind of talking about this idea of coming up with your game plan. I know when I had first looked at this ebook, it made me think of football. I was reading it kind of the week leading up to the Super Bowl, and I realized how true it is that having a positive, effective game plan really does make a difference. You can have all these other things happen, and we all know about the interception and blah, blah, blah. We can talk about all that, but there's so many things that happen in planning out your game and making sure everything's legit and in place, and you know what you need to do and have the right people and know how to read the defenses and offenses. Doing that homework before makes a difference at the time of the game. And it's even been talked about, like when they were talking about storming the beach at Normandy, and they were asking the general, like, how important was the game plan? And they said, well, the game plan that we had set up was worthless the moment we started, but the planning made all the difference in the world. And so that's the idea. You may come up with your game plan, and then as you're implementing it, realize you need to make a shift or make a change, and that's normal and that's totally appropriate, but it's the fact that you took the time to plan it all that's going to make the big difference, and that's what we're going to talk about. As an entrepreneur, you're probably wearing three hats: the technician, the entrepreneur, and the manager. And the problem for most people is they may be good at one or maybe two of these, but not all three. And the one that most people kind of are least skilled at is this bottom one of the manager. You know your industry, you know your business, you know what you're good at, so you're good at that technician. It could be that you're a masseuse, and so you're good at giving massages. Or you're a speaker and you're good at delivering the speech, or whatever it is that you're doing, you're good at that technical piece of it. And you have the entrepreneur piece of you want to get out there, you want to help change lives, but you may not know how to do it very well as a business person. And the way to help your manager hat be more effective, and I love the fact that we're calling it three hats, considering people who know me know I wear lots of different hats, literally, not just figuratively. It's that idea of the first thing that you really have to be able to do is make sure that you have strategic planning in place. If you don't actually have a plan in place for where you want your business to go, and this is, Robert was here, was it last week, the week before?
2 weeks when I was there, I think.
2 weeks ago. We sat down and we sat in the office and spent a couple hours literally making our strategic plan for Daily Upbeats. How we want to get more people, who we might want to partner with, how we're going to roll it out to more people, how we can really change more lives using Daily Upbeats in an effective way. And it's now that plan led to a lot of action we've been able to take over the last 2 weeks that's really opened the door for us taking it to that next level. If we hadn't met, we hadn't discussed it, we hadn't worked out the details, we'd still be kind of unsure what those next steps. The next steps don't necessarily 100% match what we planned 2 weeks ago, but they are getting us to where we said we want to be, and that's that key. So the first thing you have to understand when you're coming up with your strategic plan is you've got to know what is your purpose. If you're not clear what your purpose is, then you're going to struggle to have a successful business. And that's that idea of what is it that you're in business for. Like, my purpose is I help small businesses to identify the one or two things they can be doing to make more money, and then find the time to be able to focus in on those things. A lot of times people have way too much going on and they're not able to focus on the one thing. It might be, I work with a coupon mailer group, and really the thing that's most important to them is the customer management side, the interacting with the businesses that are already signed up and the businesses who might want to sign up, so that they have a really good experience, because that word of mouth is really where they're going to get more folks. That's where they need to spend the most of their time. They shouldn't be worrying about, the technology behind the scenes, or how's our social media promotion, and it's done well. There's a social media person who focuses in on that. There's a tech person who focuses in on that, and it's all those pieces are there. And the person who's really good at interacting with the businesses and making them feel happy and making them know that what they're doing is effective and working, they are the ones that are doing that more. They're spending more of their time doing that, and the business is more successful that way. So you've got to know what your purpose is and know what it is you want to do. So there's that piece of knowing how to do that. And as I was kind of talking about it, you've got to be able to leverage your strengths. The person who's great at talking to the businesses may not be very good at the tech side, or the person who does the social media promotion may not be that person who can go out and sign new businesses. You've got to know each person's strengths and strengthen their strengths. You need to help develop their strengths. Get them being able to do what they do well more, and less time spent on things they don't do well, and either have those replaced, automate those things, whatever those pieces are. So you've got to know the purpose of your business, and then what strengths each person in the business has. So I'm going to take a quick pause and take a deep breath. Robert, any thoughts or any things that stood out to you in just kind of those first few steps of coming up with your game plan?
I'm scribbling notes.
Excellent.
No, and I think it's a really powerful. We talk about coaching. You and I both do some coaching as part of our business, and the whole idea of coaching has a real strong parallel in sports. And I think this idea of having a game plan also has a really strong parallel in sports. You wouldn't go into a football game or a basketball game or any team effort without having some sort of plan in place. And yet I'm reminded as I listen to you that there's also, in and around the work that you and I both do, there's this wonderful kind of, it sounds great kind of expression like, we don't need to get caught up in the how, we don't need to worry about how, the universe will take care of the details and all that kind of thing. And that's all well and good. But I think if you look at anybody who is really consistently generating the kind of results that they want to generate, whether it's their health or their relationships or their money and finance or their career or whatever, they do have a plan. And the distinction that I've always made with the people that I'm working with is that the whole, the universe will take care of the details is a myth. If you swing too far in that direction, you're going to be in some deep trouble, and I've seen that happen to a lot of people. But also, there's another problem called if you spend all your time doing planning, but you never really get into action, that doesn't work so well either. And what I've always said is it's not okay to not have a plan, but the two things to remember is that it's okay to have an incomplete plan. Like, you can get out there and you can get engaged and you can get into action, and this is part of what's happening with our Upbeats project right now, is we don't have all the answers, we don't have it all figured out. We've identified some next steps, we've identified the next actions that we're going to take, and we're going to go out there and take it to another level, start engaging on a different level than we have been with this project. So we have what I think you could arguably call an incomplete plan, which is okay, and really important in my opinion. And the other thing that people sometimes forget is okay, that it's okay to change the plan. You make a plan, you go out there and do stuff, and you get feedback. And then you make a decision. You do more of what's working, you do less of what's not working, and you try more new things. So, again, I always tell people not having a plan, big problem. Changing the plan is perfectly fine, and having an incomplete plan is perfectly fine. And that seems to take some of the energy out of that, like I could be part of a 12-step program for people who want to have it all figured out before they get started. And remembering those two things, that it's okay for it to be incomplete and that it's okay for me to make changes, makes it easier for me to move forward into that realm of the unknown. That's just part of the process.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. Like, there is a fine balance here of having your plan and spending time, making sure you spend enough time to develop a plan, but not get caught up so much in the plan that action never occurs. And there's also an aspect of this, and this is the next step, of knowing your annual priorities. What is it you need to be doing? What is it you have to do right now to make it a reality? Is our annual priorities in Upbeats to get more people signed up or is our annual priority to get a system in place so other people can share it with their people, basically duplicating our ability to reach as many people? Because our purpose, when we talk about the purpose, let me get to what is your purpose? When we talk about what is your purpose for Upbeats, it's to get 1 million people to start their day in a positive way. That's what we want. Our purpose is to help everyone start their day in a positive way. Would you agree on that?
I totally agree, and I think, again, it brings up the difference. You know, we're still relatively early in the year here. We're still talking about goals and intentions, and there is a really profound difference between people who have goals and intentions and people who have a plan associated with those goals and intentions that involves action. You know, to me, you know, having the goals and the vision and the mission and all that is great. The plan is where it really comes to life. You know, it does get into that question of how, and without that, you know, it's great to have that dream and that vision, but until we get into action, you know, we're not going to have those 1 million people. And in the case of Upbeats, it's a really exciting vision. I think part of the challenge for us has been there's so many different ways that we could go. It's been easy to get caught in kind of paralysis by analysis, and I'm thrilled that we took the time to get together in person, sit down and do that planning session. And again, for people who are listening in, if you are doing a planning exercise, if you don't do it alone, if you get other people involved to help you, if you make it a dialogue or a, you know, multi-log, you know, however many people, you know, you and I both participate in mastermind groups. Those are where some of the most powerful planning gets done. Is in those kinds of environments where I'm not sitting here by myself trying to figure it out, but I'm sharing what's going on, asking for feedback, getting a variety of different perspectives and opinions, and developing the plan not only more effectively, but in my experience, much more quickly as well.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're talking goal setting, that kind of coincides with this idea of annual priorities. What are your priorities? What are your goals? What outcomes do you want to see happen in the next year? And the best way to do this, and I've learned this from Darren Hardy, and you probably learned it from someone else along the lines, but he always talks about SMART goals or SMART plans. And whenever you come up with a goal or a plan or an outcome that you desire, he uses the acronym of SMART, which means it's got to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's use this daily Upbeats as an example. We may say that we want to have 1,000 people receiving the daily Upbeats emails every day. And so it's specific. We know exactly how many it is. It's measurable. We'll know how many, we can see how many people are receiving emails daily, so we can check that out. It's achievable. We got to about 400 without doing any real heavy advertising promotion, just kind of reaching out to our circle saying, hey, this is cool, share it with folks. It's relevant because our goal is to get to 1 million. If we can get to that 1,000, that's a great first step. We're, you know, with 1/10 of whatever percentage it is along the way. But the thing I didn't say in there was time bound. So maybe we say we want 1,000 people enrolled in daily Upbeats by the end of February of 2015. Now that's the final piece of the SMART goal, that SMART outcome, that SMART priority. So now we know we've got to find a way to get another 600 people enrolled in the next 2.5 weeks. Okay, what does that mean? How do we do that? Do we partner with other people and use their lists? Do we heavily promote? And one of the things I'm doing for some other clients is Facebook ads right now. And every day I go in and I run beta tests. I'll create 2 ads. I'll run them for a day or 2. I'll see which one's performing better. I'll turn the one that's not performing better off, use the one that is performing well, and tweak it a little bit, and then run it a little longer and see which one does it. And it's that idea of going back and assessing and checking and making sure that let's say I want to drive to LA, I'm still got my GPS that's kind of guiding me. Even if there's a detour that takes me somewhere, it's still getting me towards LA. It's that idea of I know where I need to go. I know where I want to get to by when. It's clear, it's precise, it's smart, it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, it's time-bound, all of those things. Now it's easier for me to take action because now I have a destination to get to. So I think that's a piece of something that has to exist whenever you're coming up with your priorities, your goals, what you want your business to get to eventually. Mm-hmm. And then there's some other things that you can be doing to just make your business more successful on a consistent basis. And one of them is coming up with a meeting rhythm. And that's knowing, like, for Upbeats, does that mean that once a month we get together in person or on a hangout or on a call, and we dedicate 2 hours every month to look at what we've been doing up to now, how's it working, where do we want to get to, how close did we get to, or did we exceed our desired outcomes for this month, and really assess it and know that every, the first Friday of every month we get together and look at how last month went and plan out this coming month. And that kind of system, then we know, like, if I've got pieces that are my responsibility that have to be done in order for that meeting, I'm going to make sure I get them done because now I've got a time where I'm going to be accountable. Where instead we say, oh, we'll meet about it, I can keep putting it off until the meeting gets solidified, and then I can freak out. Instead, if I know every first Friday at 2 o'clock we're going to meet or whatever it is, I know I've got to be able to show that my stuff is done and ready to go by that time. And having that rhythm actually gives you more of a purpose and more ability to take action and stay focused on those actions. It also prevents you from doing shiny penny. Because if I show up to that meeting and say, oh, I know we said this was what we were supposed to work on, this is where we want to get to, but I spent all my Upbeats time doing this instead, that's not going to do very well because that's not what we said we were going to focus in on. Maybe that's what we focus in on March instead, but that's not good use of my time. I'm focused in on achieving the outcomes we set for February.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I don't know that I've ever heard that expression meeting rhythm before, but I will definitely use that, and I do think that it's critical, and it's critical in a number of different ways, because when you know, first of all, it creates accountability. When you know when we're going to meet next, when we're going to talk about it, now all of a sudden that time-bound criteria as part of SMART goals is the clock is running. If we're going to meet again next week, I know that I've committed to do this. And next Wednesday, someone will be asking me, is this done? It's not just open-ended and I'll do it when I have time because we know how well that works. We never have time. The other thing that I think is interesting, it reminds me, is when we're working on these projects, and almost all of us are working on multiple projects, when we finish up a meeting like this, my experience is that it's really important not only to know like what your next actions are, but also to know what is the next step in the specific meeting environment. So in other words, sometimes, it might be my job, like in the case of what you and I are working on, I have a task called, the PayPal button that I'm going to create for what we're doing. And so that's just something on the list to check off. But there's another element called, what is our next step? Like as an organization, as a group, if I go into the next meeting and rather than thinking, what did we talk about last time? What are we doing next? Where are we headed? If the last thing I do at the end of the meeting is write down what we're going to do next, the next time I open that folder, I know immediately. I don't have to backtrack and try and figure it out. So that's, I think, another helpful step to help people kind of keep the plan moving forward. Because without that, so often people get into action, but then they either get distracted or things don't go the way they wanted to go, or they get some feedback they weren't looking for, and the whole process comes to a grinding halt, which obviously isn't what we want.
Yeah, exactly. And building off of that, when you're planning these things and you're talking about where are we going as a business, as an organization, one of the next steps to being successful and coming up with your game plan is involve your employees, involve the people on your staff. Successful businesses are not dictatorships. Successful businesses are communal achievements. And it goes back to what I was talking about, knowing people's strengths, knowing what people are doing well. You've got to be able to say, you're good at social media. what do we need to do from a social media perspective? You're good at tech. What's the tech side we have to do? You're good at strategic planning. What is that we need to do? You're good at choosing this. What do we need to do there? You need to bring them all together, because the social media person might be sitting there saying, well, everything you're doing isn't congruent with a successful social media campaign. And if they're not involved in the conversation, they're going to be off here doing their own thing, and it's not actually moving the organization forward in a cohesive, organized manner. Where if the whole group is together and all the employees are there talking, and all of a sudden, somebody over here, the tech person says, this is what we need to implement, the social media person can be like, that's great, I'm glad you're doing this tech, but can I use it? If I promote using that, is it going to actually do any good? Those kind of things. So it's knowing all of those pieces and having all the employees combined talking about it is going to create a better plan for where you need to get to.
I totally agree, and I love the expression. I don't remember where I first heard it, but the expression, no involvement, no commitment. Mm-hmm. And in terms of people who are working with the team, if you are the boss, if you are the leader, if you are the manager, and you're the type of manager who comes into the meeting and says, this is what we're going to do, what does everybody think? You can expect that there's not going to be a lot of buy-in, there's not going to be a lot of commitment, there's not going to be a lot of energy and excitement, because it's like, well, the boss has already told us what he thinks. What does it matter what I think? And I love managers and leaders who come in open-minded, knowing ultimately it's probably their decision what to do, what path to follow, but to really be genuinely interested in the feedback of their team before they make that decision, rather than just getting feedback from their team on what they think of his or her decision. And it really makes a profound differences. I mean, I do a lot of work with people on their culture and their organization's culture. And when a leader is willing to take that step and genuinely listen before they make their decision, and it kind of reminds me of parenting too. Like, if I sit down and talk to my daughter about whatever, situation she's faced with, she's playing on a soccer team right now and dealing with some issues with some of the girls on the team. She's going through her college applications process. And as a parent, it's real easy to fall into that trap of, I know what's best for her, and I need to just tell her what that is. But if I'm willing to listen to her and really get her feedback and see it from her perspective before I offer that feedback, and really genuinely be open to changing my mind based on that feedback, it's an entirely different conversation. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's true. I've had this experience where I was heavily involved in the planning part of something, and then the person in charge said, you know what, I've got this, I'll just let you know what I need you to do. And I'm so much less motivated to work on this project now. I'm not just doing the extra stuff. I'm not going the extra distance. I'm not, trying to come up with new ways to make this happen. I'm not doing any of that because I'm not involved. I've just basically said, do this, okay, and I do it because I still believe in the end result of what is being worked on. But I'm not going to put in the extra time, the extra energy, the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And therefore, I don't think I'm probably not delivering the absolute best quality thing I could, but I don't have any investment in it, really. So there is that problem. But when I was involved in the planning and the conversations, I was doing extra research. I was looking at new ideas. I was trying to propose new approaches. But now I just don't feel that motivation to do that. And partially that's on me, and I know that. But partially it's an environment has been created where I don't feel like my input and my suggestions are going to be heard or appreciated. So therefore,
The other thing that I think is really important about this is to remember that it's situational. If it's a brand new company, the way a leader or a manager might handle these kinds of conversations might be different. Or if it's a brand new employee versus someone who's worked with you for 10 years, if it's someone who you know what they're capable of versus it's someone who's brand new and you never worked with them before. You don't want to take someone who's brand new and you don't know kind of what they're capable of and then just turn them loose. Stephen Covey has a wonderful expression. He talks about different levels of delegation. And I think there were 4 different levels. I'm only remembering a couple of them off the top of my head. But the highest level of delegation was what he calls stewardship delegation, where, like with you and I, this is the way we operate because we know each other well enough. We know what we're capable of. There's no like watching over your shoulder, making sure you're doing everything. It's just like, okay, Sean's going to take this aspect of it and just handle it, and I know he's going to handle it. And I'm going to take this other area and I'm just going to handle it. And we don't have to like worry. One of the other levels is wait till told. which is, I think, what you were talking about with this previous person. You know, that they're just telling you what to do. So there's no creativity, there's no kind of excitement and energy that goes into it. You're just waiting until someone tells you what to do, and you're doing what you're told, and then waiting again for what you're told. You know, and in some cases, that's the right thing to do. You know, if there's, you know, physical harm capable, and again, maybe you don't know what someone's capable of yet, that's sometimes the best thing to do. But I think that the bigger error rather in a lot of companies and with a lot of managers and leaders is that they're not willing to fully delegate to people who are capable of doing more than what they realize they're capable of doing. And there's a lot of really talented, really gifted, really creative people who could be doing so much more for the organizations they're doing, but they just aren't given the opportunity by the management and leadership when they are ready. So for a lot of managers and leaders, I think that's a powerful insight.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it kind of ties into this next part, the last part of your game plan, which is when you're doing all of this and you're planning all this out and you're having these conversations and you've come up with your goals and your plan of where you want to get to and all that stuff, you also have to take time to actually analyze the results and how it's going and what's going on with that. And there's basically 4 areas of analyzing your results that you really have to keep in mind. The first one is you've got to look at the accomplishments. What's gone well? What have you done well that's worked well? And that's like I was talking with Facebook ads, looking at the ads that are performing well. How many people have we gotten to opt in? How many eyes have viewed it? What's my opt-in rate? All those kind of click-through rates, all those pieces, clicks versus impressions, all those pieces, that's important for me to know. How's it going? What's it looking like? Am I doing well with all of that? That's all good for me to, I've got to be able to say, you know what? I'm running ads and we got 10 people, and that's 10 more people than we had before, so that's an accomplishment. That's great. Now, what we can also look at is the second part, which is lessons learned. Just because we got 10 people, what does that mean? Well, I learned that, you know, doing ads by impression versus click is going to be more cost effective because it's getting in front of more eyeballs, and I ended up getting more clicks that way, and my cost per click was less via impressions than if I was paying per clicks, that kind of thing. So you got to look at kind of what lessons have you learned from all this. And it also is that going through and looking at each of the people who's working and looking at it from the SWOT perspective. What are the strengths? What is because people may think they know what their strengths are, but you may find out that's not actually what it is. And so you've got to be able to go back and analyze. What are the strengths the person's actually bringing, and where are they possibly weak? Is delegation weak? Is communication weak? Where are those things that you may say, oh my God, I'm an amazing communicator? Actually, you're not. Every time you think you're an excellent communicator, but it's actually not coming through very well. Let's talk about how we can talk about that. Is there an opportunity that's come up where maybe you've got your social media person who's been doing social media, but you realize, wow, this person's really good at talking to new businesses. All right, give them that opportunity and say, here's 5 new businesses, go see what you can do. We'll coach you through it. I'll come with you the first time, whatever that might be. But give them the opportunity to try to do something out of their recognized strengths, because either you recognize there's a skill there, a possibility there, those kind of things. And also, where are the threats? Like, what's in danger of causing your business to run into problems? You've got to be able to identify those as well. And that ties into the fourth part, which is assessing kind of your strategic issues. Let's say we have this plan of getting 1,000 people. What's our strategic issue? Well, we've tapped out all of our current contacts. So now we have to look at, well, so what's the strategic issue we have to do? How can we get in front of more eyeballs? Well, it's not going to happen from our own list. So do we need to buy more eyeballs? Do we need to work with other people and like leverage their eyeballs? Whatever it might be, what are the strategic issues that are coming up so that we can then come up with new plans to address those? So it's not just assessing like, did we hit our goals, but it's also assessing everybody in it, involved, what they're doing, how they're doing, all of those pieces, and making sure that your new goals are adjusted accurately based on all of this assessment you've done of how you've done so far. Any thoughts, Robert?
Well, my first thought is you're like the acronym king today. You've got your acronyms all laid out. And it's funny because I was just joking yesterday with someone about how, you know, in and around our business, acronyms, sometimes people just go crazy. Like, you know, I can't come up with a name for something unless it works as an acronym. But I do SMART goals, We can pick that apart and analyze it, but it really is a good thing to remember. And SWOT is a time-tested strategy for doing analysis of how things are working now and what we can do moving forward. So those are two really good ones. And as far as the analysis, really the only thing I would add is just the idea that what gets measured gets done. There's something so powerful. You don't want to spend so much time measuring and analyzing your data that you get out of action and back into paralysis by analysis. But it really is true that what gets measured gets done, and the opposite is true as well. What you're not measuring, chances are it's not getting done. It's just helter-skelter, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. So it doesn't need to take a lot of time, but it is time really well spent to be measuring the results that are coming in, or in some cases not coming in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you've got to be realistic. You've got to know, and that's where the planning ahead of time, knowing your accomplishments that you want to have. You've got to have something to measure against, but you have to measure it in an honest, legit way, so that you can really say, yes, this is working. No, this isn't working. How can we make the adjustments? And what is our next steps? All of that needs to happen. And when you do all of this, and you have a plan in place, and you are consistently addressing this and meeting and assessing and adjusting, and then coming up with your new goals, and then meeting about them and assessing them and adjusting, and then your business is able to progress forward instead of being stuck in the mire of, I think we're doing okay. I just consulted with somebody who's working on a business, and the first meeting we had was, what are your numbers? Like, I need to know, how much of this are you selling? What's your profit margin? If you do this approach, is it like, how much do you have to sell it for to be able to break even? If you want to do this in bulk because it's a physical product, how many units do you need to sell of this product, or how many orders at a time do you need to be able to order your supplies to be able to get the bulk discount on your supplies, so that you can create these products at a cheaper level to make your profit margins bigger? All of that had to be done, and the person's like, well, I want to do this, and I don't really know if I'm making a profit, and I haven't, like, you gotta have the basics in place before we can even discuss the way to make it grow, because I don't have something to measure against. So that's the other side of this, is you gotta know what you're measuring against. If your income was, you gotta know how much money you made last month to be able to say if this month was better financially. Those kind of things. And so all of these pieces are important. All of this idea of building your game plan makes a difference. So I'm going to just go through and do kind of a little quick review really quick, Robert, and then I'm just going to open it up for any last thoughts, insights you have before we wrap up the Hangout. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, so here we go. Today we are talking about your game plan. And once again, just so everybody knows, you can go ahead and you can actually access this ebook by just going to togetSeen.com/game-plan. And so this is the site that you want to go to. This is the one that's going to let people see it. So it's just togetSeen.com/game/plan. And you can get this ebook that a lot of this information is in, so you don't have to necessarily take notes like Robert's been doing. You can snag some of the details out of that ebook. But
now he tells me.
But notes are good too, and it doesn't help like, the written word is more powerful. Pale ink is better than, I forgot what the rest of the saying is. So it's good to take notes. It's good to write down the notes yourself, but it's also, in case you want to have a resource guide for you, that's available. So just reminding everybody that when you are running your own business, there's actually 3 hats. The technician, knowing what it is that your business is about. The entrepreneur, being willing to do what has to happen to make it a reality. But then there's managing it so that you know your business is running smoothly. Managing it starts out with basic strategic planning. You've got to have a plan in place. Any plan starts with what's your purpose. If you don't know why you're in business, all the planning in the world isn't going to help you to get to where you want to be if you don't know why you're doing it. One of the keys is to leverage your strengths, and that's not just your strengths, but the strengths of every one of your employees. And also develop it. If you've got somebody whose strength is social media, give them the opportunity to do more courses, take more studies, learn to do it even better so that they become better and better at their strengths. Instead of saying, hey, you're my social media person, but I also want you to go out and learn email marketing. That's not what you're doing, so don't know it. Don't make them develop something that isn't one of their strengths. You've got to know what your annual priorities, and I would even say your monthly priorities are as well. What do you need to get done in order, like where do you want to get to? What are those priorities and what needs to happen to get there? whenever you're setting up your goals, your priorities, whatever it is, make sure they are SMART. Make sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Make sure you have a meeting rhythm so that you have a time that you know you have to have results by, something to check in with, information to have to share. If you have that rhythm in place, it's going to make it a lot easier to be held accountable, and also gives you more motivation to stay driven and focused in on the things you're supposed to work on. Make sure you're involving your employees. They have insights that they're looking at the jar from the outside, or at least from a different angle than you are. You need to be able to get those different perspectives. Analyze your results. So the best 4 ways to analyze your results: first of all, make sure that you're looking at your achievements. What's gone well? Also, make sure that you're looking at lessons learned. Maybe something didn't go well, but what can you take from that in order to do better? Also, make sure that as you're doing you're measuring it from the perspective of SWOT, so that you're looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is for your business as well as for the individual employees. And then look at what strategic issues have come up so that you can continue to address them and make adjustments to your strategic plan, your game plan, in order to make sure that you are addressing them moving forward, so that your business is moving forward and not just stuck in one place. That's the information I wanted to share today. Robert, any last thoughts, insights, things that you wanted to share with the people?
Well, I think the one thing that comes to mind for me, just to kind of wrap it all up, we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. I think you've made a compelling case for the importance of having a plan, and yet at the same time, I know for some people doing a plan can feel kind of overwhelming. And the one thought that I'm left with is that at its simplest, a plan is a list of the tasks that need to be done, and it's prioritized. So the process of doing an initial plan can literally be just capturing it all on paper, doing a brainstorm, trying to think of all the things that you need to do, and then prioritizing them, putting them in order. I'm going to start with number 1, and I'm going to work my way to number 476, whatever it is. And at that point, you have a plan. You have the things that need to be done are captured, they're in order, you know where to start, and you're ready to take action. So if people are willing to just take that simple step to take their actions and prioritize them, they're on their way to having that game plan in place.
Exactly. Identify the 3 things you have to do today and make them the first 3 things you do that day. You may have a list of 20 things that would be good to get done in order to move your business forward, but know what those first 3, what are the first 3 most important things? And it could be something really unexciting like, I don't know, paying your taxes, or invoicing your clients. And those are important things that need to get done because you got to keep those things moving. And some days it's going to be all marketing all the time, and all you're doing is spending your day focusing in on 3 things to market your business better, or doing the back end and building your back end so that it's automated and runs smoother. It doesn't matter what those 3 things are. You just need to know what the top 3 for that day are. Do those first, and then you can work on all of the other pieces. That way your top most important things are out of the way and you've got plenty of time. What keeps people from doing their top 3 is they're afraid either it may be something out of their comfort zone, something they're not experienced with, or they think it's going to take a really long time. And my experience has been, when you know your top 3 and you do them first, they get done faster than you expected, and you end up getting more done in the day instead of poking around at a few things and then hopefully fitting in those last 3 priorities, and then you're working late. Where if you know, I got to get these 3 things done, you do them, the rest of your day you get to have some fun. And we talked about this in last week's Hangout, so you can check out last week's Hangout a little bit more to learn that. But having the plan in place, knowing what you need to do in order to implement it, assessing how well those things that you're doing are working, and does your plan need to be adjusted in order to move forward more effectively. Keep those pieces in mind. You're going to be effective. And if you're stuck on even how to start with your plan, go ahead and get the free ebook, or just reach out to me. On my site, there's a place where you can just ask for a consultation with me. I'm happy to sit down, talk to you about your business, where you're at. And you can schedule a time to meet with me, and we'll sit there and have a conversation, and I can help you get started with figuring out your plan. So, Robert, I want to thank you for being on this Hangout like you usually are. I love your insights. I love how well you do a really good job of taking what I'm sharing and reframing it so people hear it in different language. I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm also just appreciative of your constant ongoing support.
All right. Well, that feeling is definitely mutual. And for anyone who's watching this Hangout, I would just reiterate what Sean was sharing at the beginning. Join us live. It's more fun when more people join in the conversation, and as well as you and I kind of play off of each other. I know when we've had other people joining us, that just adds to the conversation as well. So if you're watching these Hangouts and have the opportunity even to join us for just part of it, definitely do that. We'd love to connect with you here live in the Hangout.
Yeah, and that way we can answer questions live. We get your feedback, and it's that idea of involving the employees. The more people, the more perspective, the more ideas we have, the more rich these Hangouts are going to be, the more benefit everyone's going to get from them. So we'd love to have you join us. They're every Wednesday at noon Pacific. Keep an eye out. I'll invite. Go ahead and just connect with me on Google. I'll add you to a circle that lets you get invites so you get reminded of these every week. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, Wednesdays, noon Pacific. And I will see you there. Cheers, everybody.
All right. Thanks, John. Take care.